colleagues.
Я дуже вдячний всім.
And thank you for all who have agreed to participate. Here we invited people who know a lot about what should Ukraine do in the nearest 5 or 10 years to become part of the European community in a wide sense. I'm not talking about some specific structures, to be closer to this beautiful picture where we see how Europe looks like when all the lights are on. We would like to be closer to the eastern part of Europe, not just because of the war. We would like to welcome Ukrhydroenergo companies that signed an agreement about the possibility to join ENTSO-E, but we understand that's just the beginning of the way, and that's why we invited people who know perfectly well what Ukraine should do in the nearest future for this to become the reality. I would like to request Mr. Kovalchuk, the acting head of Ukrhydroenergo, to start. We also welcome Madam Natalia Boyko, the Deputy Minister of Energy, and also MP Natalia Katser-Buchkovska, and also 3 experts. I would like to request you to take 5-7 minutes. What's your position, so that we can discuss all these issues every time when we are trying to understand what's happening in the energy sector? Ukraine has made great successes in achieving energy independence from Russian Federation in the oil and gas sector, but unfortunately in the electricity sector the degree of our dependence has not decreased but increased. Other aspects are also of importance, but main thing for us, for me, main arguments that we gave to our Western partners and the stakeholders here in Ukraine, the security aspect, when we depended from anthracite type coal, which is supplied from temporarily occupied territories. That's one thing, but we have a big shortage of energy resources, and much depends on regulating the capacity and frequency. In summer last year, maybe you remember, the repair works continued at 2 units of Rivne NPP in Ukraine. For a week we had a shortage, about 2,500 megawatt of capacity, and that was the time when there was the first blockade of supply of coal, and that was initiated by the representatives from those occupied territories. We have the agreement with Russia, which is 20 years old, and we have to execute on all the technical issues, even if we have some political differences, and Russia refused to provide any assistance to us because they started some campaign of maintenance at their power plants, and they said that from 9 p.m. you will have 0. From partial restriction, limitation of our consumers saved by the weather, the summer was very hot, but the day when we were when the supplies were blocked, the weather changed temperature became 10 degrees lower. But if this didn't happen, we wouldn't be able to launch some new unit power plants. We were unable to enhance the capacity, and that is why I believe that the security aspect is the main one. Now, the agreement. We've been we submitted several applications. And first, this agreement had to be signed in 2011, and the European side said that Ukraine could not cope with its commitments. And then in 2014, when the Ukraine started going in the direction of European integration,
На 1,5 роки дослідження, яке здійснювало.
There was a year and a half of research that was done by UKRENERGO, and in spring this year we received the final text of the result of this survey. In May we approved the final text of this agreement, which was signed on the 28th of June this year in Brussels.
Більша частина підписів країн, які входять, не країн, а компаній, які входять в ENTSO-E, вони поставили свої підписи, і була офіційна позиція ENTSO-E, що угода набула чинності. Тому це дійсно велике свято, і не тільки тому, що підписання було в день нашої Конституції, тому що це той документ, який має певні двосторонні зобов'язання. Тобто він чітко визначає, що ми маємо зробити. Після того, як ми це зробимо, є зобов'язання протягом 6 місяців винести на рішення ENTSO-E питання щодо приєднання нашої мережі. Тому, крім безпекового аспекту, у нас є ще два. Перший – це технічний аспект. Може помилково здаватися, що нам треба зробити якісь інвестиції виключно заради приєднання в ENTSO-E. Насправді, все, що знаходиться в цьому Operation Handbook і каталогу заходів, які вийшли в нашу, це абсолютно нормальні, звичайні речі, які ми і так мали б робити і інвестувати в це кошти, незалежно від ідеї приєднання до Європи. Тому що це підвищить стабільність нашої системи, забезпечить нам можливості самостійно, без Росії, здійснювати регулювання частоти в системі і, в принципі, підвищить якість енергопостачання. Тому технологічний аспект, він важливий, тому що ми беремо певну стандартизовану процедуру, ми по ній пройдемо, ми гарантовано будемо відповідати вимогам до енергосистем, які є в Європі, але ми б це робили і так, просто може трохи довше або менш системно. І останній аспект чисто економічний. Знову ж таки, я певний абсолютно, бо російське лобі, воно потужне і в Європі, і в Україні, ви це знаєте. І я очікую найближчим часом певну критику, аналітику, економічну, там, обґрунтованість чи необґрунтованість, доведення доцільності приєднання до мереж. Але я хотів би сказати наступне, що оскільки ці інвестиції і так були б понесені, в будь-якому разі, я хочу відобразити, що
The investment programs which were submitted by generating companies were for bigger money. Economically, Ukraine will get big benefits. Now, when we are connected to Russia, but we do not have any chance to have bilateral trade, especially open direct trade, like it happens with European countries. As soon as we get connected, every consumer in Ukraine will have the technical possibility to directly supply electricity abroad or to buy electricity from abroad, and that is why this interstate trade will give a big impetus to the investments into the energy sector of Ukraine and will lead to higher competition in the domestic market, especially in the sector of thermal generation. Every consumer will feel it. Talking about the scope of investments, we believe that it's from 600 million to 1.2 euros during 5 years. There's theoretical possibility to do it faster, but for that we need a very consolidated position of the regulator and executive authorities and the desire of all the subjects of the market to make these investments quickly. After all technical things are made and after all these standards are implemented, there will be several stress tests for our energy system. We will disconnect from Russia and Belarus before we can get connected to European energy system. This period could be maximum 1 year, but theoretically it could be minimum only a few days. And if we do it all correctly, then there will be no chance to stay in isolated mode for a few months.
A very short clarification. You're talking about the need for an investment. Does it mean that owing to this agreement we are going to pay less for the power? For example, if they're going to show 2 plus, our new market is going to start operating earlier than we are going to join this grid. Even after the transition period, we'll have at least 2 years when we are going to work under the conditions of liberated market without the form of different ties or whatever, just on the contractual basis, and before the market could be open physically for the foreign players. This is the risk period when through the efforts of the executive and monopoly committee and the regulator, we have to restrict the possibility of the growth of the price. If you're talking about the decrease of prices based on what we have today, would be unreasonable. There is a statistics in Europe after the unification of the grids. The prices of the lower grid dropped by 20.5-30%. But we have to compare this with the basis which we had at the moment of joining or unification of the market. Or legally speaking, we have to be allowed to do that. And this is allowed to do anyway, but according to the market rules. But if we're talking about those grids and the rules of the market, which are being only specified today, we need some kind of clarification which will allow us to work with the foreign counter agents. If you compare it to the basic price at the moment of our joining the grids or the network, we can just expect that the price for the power will drop by 20-25-30%. The standard figure. They won't demand it. Other countries demanded this kind of drop in the price. But what kind of the basis which we are going to base ourselves, I cannot tell you. Now the floor is given to Natalia Boyko, the Deputy Minister of Energy and Coal Industry. What kind of work should be done by the ministry, by the government, either to approve the laws or to introduce some amendments or implementation of those laws which exist today in order to efficiently join or be connected to that grid. Thank you very much. I would like to thank Vsevolod personnel and all the UKRENERGO team for the work done. This is really very, very important steps towards the development of our energy system. For us, very important is that everything goes according to the plan and logic, which is provided for by the agreement per se. As for what has been done already by the ministry, what has still to be done. Since 2014, the minister was carrying out the work in order to join the ENTSO-E. Even the Minister Prodan signed the first order, contain number of the requirement and some of the actions to be carried out till the year 2019. Later, as Vsevolod mentioned, the minister had a project which was implemented. There was UKRENERGO regarding the conditions and terms for joining that network or grid. Also, we did a lot of analytical work. There are some outcomes, results. We have a clear vision what would be the logic of our joining that network or grid, and the critical importance work of the minister will be the proper regulation of the market of energy and the secondary legislation, because we have a clear understanding that the market will 100% operate after we join that network or grid. Since it has been already mentioned that the transition period is a bit going ahead, and then the speed of unification, we are going to have some difficult period when all the bodies have to to join the efforts and properly cooperate with each other. Also, we raised this issue on CE as one of the priority in the energy strategy. We believe that this issue includes two different stages. Stage one up to the year 2020, implementation of the requirements of the third energy package. Also, the provision is made practically for the major measures to be taken in order to unite with this kind of the international network MNC, and another stage till the year 2025, which makes provision for the operation of the system under conditions of a new market. Also, provision is made at this stage we are going to implement the complete, let's say, connection to that network. And after the cabinet minister is going to adopt this document, the most important was to us to properly implement the task of question and to come up with a very clear roadmap which would include all the necessary steps and measures towards the implementation of the agreement signed till the year 2020. We're talking about the first roadmap, the next roadmap which is going to be drawn up after this one. This will be for the period till the year 2025. It would be very important to reflect there all the measures and steps to be taken by the ministry in order to support this initiative till the year 2025, and then later till the year 2030 we are going to work to deal with the theoretical determination how this kind of unified grid is going to operate. We'll have to attack the issue of the intergovernmental trade or the competition and the internal external markets, and the situation will be absolutely different then. But all those stages till the year 2020, 2025 are of critical importance, and very important here, not only are we going to move to implement all those steps envisaged by this contract agreement, also implementation what pertains to the market itself. Well, how you can be sure that we are going to implement this market? As Vsevolod mentioned, we have been trying since 2006 to join that the grid. We had already a law which did not operate. Why do you think what kind of guarantee we have that we are going to be successful this time? There are several factors. Number one, when we are talking about the reforms implemented in the power sector and, after the revolution of dignity, of course, there are a lot of critical moments associated with the energy market, but there is a very big difference between the situation before we adopted the basic law and after that. I expect similar results from the energy market. Moreover, since we have a top priority, high priority, directly coming from the Prime Minister, the coordination center is going to be subordinated to him directly or report to him directly. We have a clear marker from the European Union, the energy community, and our other partners regarding the expectations and requirements which Ukraine has to fulfill. I have to understand that this is one of the most critical tasks faced by Ukraine. After we achieve all full implementation of the gas market, we have to concentrate our attention on the energy market, electric power market, and here we need not only the high quality cooperation on the part of the, not only of the UKRENERGO, but the regulator. And the twinning which we have, the regulator should bring the same fruit in their own portion of the work. And since this is top priority task for the government, we will see the results in the planned date.
The MP Natalia Katser-Buchkovska, how optimistic you are? We don't have the regulator, the representative of the regulator. We don't know about their position. Are there any risks in implementation, according to you? Good afternoon to all present. Good afternoon to colleagues. I would like to talk about a wider aspect, political aspect of this issue. And you are talking about risks, about chances, but I would like to say that we have no other choice but be successful in the implementation of this project. First of all, that's a big step forward. I mean, signing of the agreement, because starting from signing of the association agreement, that was one of the tasks for the coalition government, and we were discussing this task, and today we have first quite serious step. Ukraine has passed all the tests and the agreement is signed. I will tell you one story. We are working on the first plan on energy security, draft law on energy security, and these will be the priorities. But also, besides everything else, we're working with the colleagues from the Committee on Foreign Affairs, the so-called Marshall Plan of support of Ukraine, which will help us have investments into big structural projects. One of our advocates at the international market is the former Prime Minister of Lithuania, and he told about what Lithuania was doing. And they practically got disconnected from Russian Federation, with which historically they have same relations as Ukraine has, and that was a big process in a small country which had a clear objective and strong will to get disconnected and get synchronized. But Russian Federation did not leave them alone, and on the border with Lithuania, 20 kilometers away from Vilnius, they built a nuclear power plant on the territory of Belarus, which accordingly is also a threat, because the way it was like a political project. When they constructed this NPP, we see why I'm talking about this example. I give this example so that you understand that energy sector is part of the policy and of politics and part of hybrid war. And for us, it is very important to diversify all the risks, and synchronizing Ukrainian system with the ENTSO-E system will be part of implementing our European aspirations, implementation of all our political documents. And we also are talking about possibility to attract global investments. I mentioned the Marshall Plan because we can attract big foreign investments, but for that we need to harmonize our energy systems. That's also the issue of energy security. Energy security of our state depends on many things. It was easier in the gas sector, but here it's more difficult to disconnect the system. You're talking about 5 years. I heard more pessimistic terms, but this is for us a possibility to attract global level of the market which will be more competitive, more transparent, and then in the result we'll get better pricing at the electricity market. And me as the representative of the political body, of the legislative body, I can say that we do support this process, but we have questions. What is needed for this process to be fast? What assistance at legislative level we need? That is the question to executive authorities and to the state company Ukrhydroenergo. Then, what's the time frame? The time frame should be clear, because then we'll be able to talk about attracting investments and implementation of structural projects. And third question, what are the obstacles now? What could be the obstacles in the future to make this process maximum coordinated? And it cannot be simple, but at least it should be simple in political sense. Thank you. A brief comment of Vsevolod, but I would also clarify the question. Why do you have this optimism that the parliament will support? We saw how the parliament did not vote for certain things which were in the memorandum with IMF. This could stop investments. We see how the parliament has not started its work on restoring a regulator. And when the election campaign starts in media, how sure we can be that the parliament will be working? Why are you so optimistic? I would like to say that the Energy Committee in the parliament, we passed all necessary laws for the reform of gas market. That's the law on the gas market, the law on the independent regulator. That was a difficult political process, a compromise. We've been working quite long on that. The law on electricity market, which is not simple. If you believe that the process was simple, it's not. The law on gas market and the law on electricity market in perspective, and now touches upon the interests of main energy groups which have big influence. I don't have a lot of optimism, but I understand that we need to move forward, and I expect that we'll get a big resistance from pro-Russian energy lobby. You understand all the history, not just 25 years. In Soviet Union, Ukraine was connected, people had business on that, people were earning on that, and now we are changing the course, and that means big financial losses and don't receive the income, profit. There will be a big resistance, but for that we have political level. We need to explain to people this should be the requirement of the society so that there's no chance not to do it. The reform is to be popularized. It has to be such without which people themselves and the society the society should demand to move in this direction, and then I believe the reform will be successful. Also, should understand what benefits they will get, the guarantees from that there will be the technical support in case of some emergency situations. People should know that then reform will go better. We'll ask about that Svitlana Holikova, about the point of view of the consumer. But there was a question to you, and what's needed from the legislator. The comment is very brief. I would like to give the example on attracting foreign investments. Yesterday evening, we had a meeting with Chinese investor, a rare case of the Chinese investor. They want to build a wind park in Mykolaiv region, and the investments are about $1 billion. I believe that people come here because we have one of the highest green tariffs, but the main questions they asked were not about how they will get connected, how they will get the green tariff, but they asked, when will you get connected to ENTSO-E? And I said, why are you concerned with that? In Europe, the price for wind energy is market and it's lower. And they said, but you reduced green tariff once, and it was critical for them to understand that while they implementing the projects, we will get connected to Europe, and in case of some changes in Ukraine, they will be able to supply to Europe. And for them, it's a very serious argument for making final decision to invest and construct the wind farm. And they were asking about when we will get connected. So we should really consider this fact. We perceive it differently inside the country. We see what's happening here, but people from outside, they assess the security aspect from the point of view of protection of investments. As to the efforts of legislators, the main thing is the parliament has done a lot, and I would like to thank especially the committee, because I have I have seen how the committee was not agreeing to compromises that happened in other draft laws, and the law is more or less good. But now the main thing is regulator. In September, without NERCAP, we will be able to do nothing. Half of the bylaws that we are talking about, and that by these I mean, and these are the regulations which are to be passed by the regulator. The investment programs are to be approved by the regulator. The transfer should be taking place with the participation of the regulator. And it is very critical that the regulator is there. I don't want to talk about the quality, independence, and other things. These are different points of view, but we as participants of the market, for us it is extremely important for the regulator to work. So I would like to wish for the Parliament to start the first session from the issue of NERC.
Svitlana, what about the consumer? What potentially they can get out of that? Thank you. We have a very difficult technical, technological, political topic. I would like to start with a joke. Looking at our panelists, we have kind of classic gender equality: 3 ladies and 3 gentlemen plus a journalist. That's why I really wish that this gender equality could apply to the energy equality, so that Ukraine could feel an equal member of European countries. And we have also to improve the gender situation in your organization. There are too few ladies. This is maybe, well, this is a kind of a joke, but this is a more serious topic we are discussing now. We actually reached the point when we are talking about in the power sector, the possibility for the reforms in Ukraine. Actually, there will be no more populist or easy reforms. We reached the point when we face very difficult, complex, technological, and non-popular transformations and changes, but which are going to bring to us in the next period of time the improvement from point of view of the safety, security, which was mentioned here, from point of view of economy, and point of view of the quality of life, because the energy power engineering actually affects the life of human lives most drastically. Vsevolod aptly mentioned regarding the prices in the European energy markets. Aren't you surprised that when we pay today 1 hryvnia approximately for 1 kilowatt hour as the household, and we take special pride that we have a cheap transportation, though they increase the tariffs for the public transport by 1 hryvnia, we actually go to the markets or supermarkets and buy foreign-made commodities, goods made in Poland, Italy, which look cheaper even after they cross the border than our internal or domestic products. And I hope actually we have such prices that in Brussels it's cheaper to buy a bar chocolate than in Ukraine. And this is an issue when the consumer in the future perhaps will have to pay, I mean households will have to pay more. But in the industry, industrial enterprises, even the small commercial consumers are going to win out of this competition is going to be created. We have to understand that that this is our future, not the sweets, not chocolates, but the quality of our life. So I would like to draw attention of our journalists and experts that we have to support such a reform in a possible way. We have to be the supporters of that, and not to win, as one of our politicians mentioned. We should not win, but we have to take a spade and dig. This is the case. We should not actually complain of the complexity, and we have to help each other. In the end, I would like to say that as an expert, I'm going to mention another thing, that we are going to face very big risks. There are political risks as well. They mentioned that, for example, Russia, and I believe that their effect will increase, and the pressure exerted on the company will increase, because this is the center of gravity. This is a kind of attractive naphtha gas, but in the energy sector and the big resources and big responsibility and the influence on the whole energy system, and would even say the big money which circulate within that will attract different political and economic. There is also the risk of conflict of interests, because partially there is also a conflict between the commercial interests of the national Ukrainian regarding the joining this grid for all the consumers, and the risk of the commercial project for energy cities, energo cities, the completion of construction of the Khmelnytsky power units, and our opponent relations. We know that this project involves the tech and our from the point of view of connecting to European networks or grids. This aspect can exist, and it's been taken care of, but from point of view of commerce, there are different things, and the ministry and the cabinet of ministers should play a key role here in order to understand what is the promising for us, not from the commercial benefits for the one or two companies. There is a risk associated with Moldova, because we are going to join or to ENTSO-E together Moldova in that grid, and the political situation in Moldova is the subject of diplomatic relations. This is the subject of good economic relations, and perhaps even military and others. And here we need the assistance on the part of Brussels and maybe from Washington. And also this is the issue of coordination of this process. In this case, I believe the key role should be played by the government. And so the governmental agenda includes this item, not in the last item on the agenda, but the government must be kind of the provider of the idea of unification of the energy systems. Once again, I emphasize, even if it's not the most popular decision, even if it's very complex, complicated technological decision, but the decision is meant for all the future consumers and the whole industry of Ukraine. I need clarification. How I can be sure that this is going to be to reach the end of the story? We had some cases where there are examples when they increased the tariffs for the electric power, but we did not get what we wished to get. And reforms were just finished 50%. We have to leave those persons in place who started that and let them a chance to finish everything. Andrii Perevertaiev, please, you have the floor. Thank you, Roman. Among such very big-time colleagues, decided to also to join this expert circle and try to use very simple language without claiming the whole picture, to show the whole picture, but to demonstrate what is going Ukraine to get out of this kind of unification of the grids. I had some calculations, would like to share those results with everybody. Maybe you can see the prospects we have, which in fact this very important process will bring us. I will start from far away what's going on in Europe. Very briefly, we know that there is the unification, or the markets, they have to go through a very thorny way. We are talking about the agreement between different countries, and in fact we have four clusters of the United Markets in the whole of Europe. What is the result of that? Well, first of all, how it happens. Due to the increase in all the throughput capacity between the countries, and a lot of European investments are involved there. On this slide, you can see that in a number of cases, for more than 50%, the throughput capacity has increased more than 50%. My calculations are based, or let's say, are based on the new market. Of course, today's market will not give us such price signals, you know. In the end, I'm going to demonstrate what the existing market can offer us from the point of view of integration, what results can bring about. But in this case, I would like to draw attention to such an important thing, which Vsevolod mentioned before, the behavior of the price. If we look what happens to prices in different countries, in different markets, well, this is the wrong slide. Well, I'm sorry. What happens? There is kind of the leveling off of the prices. What this integration in the European markets is directed at? It is directed the following end. The price and volatility price decreases drastically. In a number of cases, this volatility of the peak price decreases by 150%. So the price levels off and becomes less volatile, less dependable on the conditions of the energy, less dependable on different modes, or the let's say the transition of the power. And this allows us to implement the national energy mixes, which in different European countries, from the point of view increasing the improving the favorable conditions for the existing markets. What it already gave to our neighboring countries, the Baltic countries, for example. In this slide of this Finnish system operator, you can see the path, or the way the Baltic countries followed from point of view of development of interconnectors, from the point of view of actually full integration into the European energy system. What interesting is about that? We take the year 2011, the price in all these zones, in all countries, Baltic countries, and the Scandinavian countries, the price is 45, 50, and more than 50 euros. What happens next? Naturally, the decrease of limitations of the exchange, or let's say the transportation of the power, and between the Baltic and Scandinavian countries, the price drops by 15-20% after the unification of markets in 2015, after the Baltic countries actually joined this network. There are interconnectors or links between Poland and the Baltic states, and this kind of optimization brings the following: the price dropped more than twofold. And the result, which was obtained by the Baltic price, I mean that the price for the electric power in those countries, as you can see here, is on the decline. As different from our price, which increases year in, year out, so no trans-border links can influence that. The point which we reached today, well, actually, then I try to calculate what is going to happen when we launch this market. So when we are going to form the transfer price and how it's going to tell our import-export and the electric power price. I will show that in one diagram. So a few words about this diagram. You can see here, I just took one day because I didn't have a lot of time at my disposal, so it's kind of a review rather, you know. So one day on this slide you can see the prices for the exchange markets in the neighboring countries. The Polish prices and the prices in the markets of four neighboring countries, Romania, Slovakia, Czech Republic, and Hungary. After this kind of market coupling was in place. And there are two our prices. First price at the bottom, shown in the dotted line, and this is the marginal price line. So our market operates today in such a way that, despite the fact what prices, what the requests are from the heat generation, this price is regulated by the National Committee, Regulation Committee. This leads to under financing or lack of financing, etc. So this is the weekday, and this price is limited to the level established by their decision by the regulator committee without tying this to the competitive, let's say, demand, and this price was decreased by almost by twofold in some hours as compared to the heat generation companies which they declared actually. And this is an open information. Actually, my calculation based on the open source of information. This information can see the energy market website, so the price which the heat generation would like to get, and the closing generators Lugansk CHP, and this is higher than the marginal price. So we have the prices at the exchange market of the stock markets of the neighboring countries regulated by the regulator committee, and the competitive market price which can simulate today for the heat generation and for the country as a whole for the future. I mean, what we can see based on this diagram. First off, this is the market price the day ahead. This is not the price, the consumer price. This is the price, according to the expert opinion, can be formed in the day ahead market. We can clearly see here that without regulation during the night hours, the prices in our neighbors are much lower than our price. So, in fact, you're talking about the consumers. If it could be conventionally imported, the night hours price could be decreased in number of cases by 1/3, by 3%. This was actually the conclusion made by Vsevolod for the smaller energy system.
As to the day peak, there's a potential in some cases for export. We lost the competition with Polish market. That is one day. Another days the picture changes. I took an average working day. Basically, as to night hours, here our price loses in competition. What it means? It means that when the systems are synchronized, when the market prices are synchronized, I believe that we will preserve the rate, we will not lose it. The efforts of Ukrhydroenergo will help us implement our plans. The launch of the market in 2019-2020. I can show you what's happening in European markets, our price and price of our neighbors will level out. It will be at the average level without regulations. It will go down by 20-30%. And that illustrates pretty well the thesis that energy systems allow to reduce prices when they are united. But this graph, for me as a consumer, shows that NERC gives the lower price than the market. The previous markets graphs show that it could be twice larger, twice lower. What will I get as a consumer if we participate in the European market? Here you see the Poland, which approximately is similar to our graph. There is Romania and Hungary, where prices are higher. These are traditional markets of supply of electricity from Slovak Republic and Ukraine. I don't see Slovak Republic, it coincides. But all the direct supplies from Ukraine, from Burштyn Island, or via existing interconnectors go in the direction of Romania and Hungary. And now Slovaks start constructing two powerful lines to increase the possibility to supply there. If you would add price in Germany, it would be much lower than this 4M price. When all countries are united, you need to understand that we'll be buying electricity. We'll have a chance to buy it not just in the countries which are nearest neighbors. We can buy it from Denmark and we can supply it to Denmark. And that is what the sense of big energy systems is about. And Poland is trying to do what Ukraine is doing. They're protecting their coal sector. They're trying to close the market. 80% of their in their energy balance accounts for coal. And they have large private companies which have this coal sector. There are state subsidies for coal. The price of extraction of coal or mining coal is higher than the average in this sector. And this example is very good. It shows some hours where we get the reduction of price. But the pressure of generation from the North Sea, and that is what all European countries feel, when the wind energy from the North Sea is the lowest wind energy price in the world. Long-term contracts are 4.2, 4.3 euros per kilowatt of green energy. We have 10. We need to give incentives, but when we are talking about 5, 10 years, then the prices will be lower. The risk that you are talking about, that's what I said, and Natalia confirmed after the market is liberalized, then we have this risk, and that's where this should be restrained. Energoatom will win. In this case, it will be able to supply electricity and complete constructing what they want to construct. Ukrhydroenergo, because after the system is united, they need to have lower reserves. They will have additional reserves which they will be selling to Europe very expensively. It could be even 200 euros per megawatt hour. Hydroenergo will win. Who will lose? Thermal generation will lose. It will lose a lot because now they are limited because ORC, but when the limitation is annulled, the situation will change. and they will feel the pressure of competition, first of all. Unfortunately for them, for this business, long-term perspective is that the coal generation will die by 2050. We need to go along the German way, which are trying to enhance alternative energy production. Our price will not be like in Hungary. It will be something average between Hungary and Poland. They're now limited even by our capacities. As soon as we get united, then transit opportunities will go up twice, and this will reduce prices in their market. The countries that support us are Slovakia, Romania, and Hungary. They even paid for our research. Poland is neutral, and the NERCAP feels it all the time. Why Romania? Why Hungary? Because they have very high prices, and they want to reduce them. And they know that when we are united, the prices will go down. We are open for any position, and Centerenergo company and DTEC company. We are open for them coming and expressing their position. Dixie Group, Anton Antonenko, have you analyzed which of our commitments to EU should be done, and what are the biggest risks of implementing these commitments? Because very often we see that there are commitments on paper, but they are delayed. We see it in many markets. Thank you, colleagues. I will try to quickly share observations, and I will try to sum up our discussion. Basically, in Dixie Group and Coalition Energy Reforms, we've been there since 2011, and we are monitoring execution of Ukraine by the commitments within energy community, now the commitments within association agreement. And what we have seen is a desire to pass the legislation, to do something, to get things adapted and adopted. But now, why we are doing it, what's inside this European Union, this is the core instruments which is offered by European Union. That is our European integration. That is our visa-free regime for electricity. We are talking about the instrument which offers to its members to become part of European Union. So there's a lot of work ahead. It will not be very public. It is not about statements, but it's directed towards achieving result, because the European Union means the freedom of movement of goods and services. We're talking about basic things. Now, after so many years, we have approached that, and we could feel ourselves process, because we are discussing things which European Union was discussing when they were being formed. That's the main thing we should be discussing from the very beginning. My second message is, despite all these great prospects, this is the instrument, and no one will force us to execute it. It's our will, be our desire, our vision of the prospects, of the benefit of a better life. It's the instrument on our way. I would like to remind also that many instruments and chances were lost, and that's a pity in the past. But now there's one more chance, and we shouldn't lose it, shouldn't waste it. And one more thing that we emphasize, and we have been emphasizing it all the time, it's about very simple things, and that's coordination of cooperation. Historically, in the country, there are many state authorities which are responsible for the policy and energy sector, and that's because of the size of the country. But today, it's like the main thing, coordination between all the participants